Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bonus Point Rugby Podcast. My name is TJ Olsen, and great to have you with us for another episode of the pod. Super Rugby Pacific has officially returned. I cannot believe those words are coming out of my mouth because it feels like just yesterday the All Blacks season had ended, and I know we're still talking about all the trials and tribulations that are going on in New Zealand rugby, the coaching changes. We now have a panel to now hire the new All Blacks coach, and who knows what we're going to see in store for New Zealand rugby at the moment, and also Australian rugby with a lot of the changes that have occurred. We've got Vern Cotter coming in 2027 as the Queensland Reds coach. He obviously has to finish his season with the Auckland Blues and go from there. But a lot of exciting things and a lot of pretty nerve-wracking things because we've got a lot going on this year. Really excited to see the All Blacks in Baltimore versus South Africa. I'll be heading over for that game, be getting some more opportunity to catch up with the All Blacks and see them boots on ground and get to interview some of the players and things of that nature. But yeah, really exciting times ahead. But speaking of Super Rugby, we do have someone joining us on the pod today. She is an incredible rugby journalist and content creator in the space. Someone who I've admired for quite a long time since she kind of surfaced in an algorithm or surfaced on my For You page on whether it was TikTok or Instagram. And a person who is just so authentic and doing some amazing things for the game. So really excited to chat to her about not only the upcoming Super Rugby season, but also her creative process, how she got into journalism and all the other fun stuff that goes into chatting to someone on a podcast. So we are excited to jump straight into it. That is what is on the cards today. So let's rip in. This is the Bonus Point Rugby Podcast. Welcome into the Bonus Point Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I am excited to chat with someone doing some incredible work behind the scenes, bringing rugby stories to life and helping grow our game with some amazing content. Our guest today is a content creator and journalist who's been capturing the modern side of the game through storytelling, creative media, digital engagement, and we're going to talk about her journey into sports media, the projects she's working on, and of course, getting into the upcoming Super Rugby Pacific season. Please welcome to the show, Ella Ferguson. Ella, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for making the time to speak with me.
No, I mean, thank you for making the time to come speak with me. I mean, I know how flat out you are, but I've been following your journey as a content creator for quite some time, and I've been really excited to have the opportunity to not just get you on the pod, but just, I guess, pick your brain about a lot of things, because I don't know if you know, but the first time I ever saw you was the time you chose to do that 12 days of Bronco challenge around Christmas time a couple of years ago.
I remember.
Before we dive into anything that we're going to go into today, I am dying to know what enticed you to come up with this diabolical challenge. Like what has someone done to you, or what things have you gone through to go, I'm going to go run 12 Broncos in 12 days?
Yeah. That was a time, I think sometimes I forget that I did that. It was probably the peak of my physical activity ever in my life. But basically, I think I had been for the past 12 months kind of running this content thread around Bronco Watch. I'd found that people were really interested in them, I guess because they're so measurable and you can kind of measure yourself against them. But I thought that it was a little bit stink that I was I don't think my content was passing judgment on players, but I was commenting on players' Bronco times, and I'd never run one myself. So I was having this thought around the end of November, and I was like, maybe I should run one. And then it was just getting into Christmas time, and I said to myself, it'd be really funny to do 12 days of Broncos for Christmas. And then before I thought about it too much, I kind of put up a story saying I was going to do it, because once I've committed something to the internet, then I have to. At that point, I still thought it was a really funny idea. By day 2, it was not funny anymore. It was not funny. I was going through my days. I was dreading them. I had Bronco anxiety. I did it pretty much. In the end, it was 12 Broncos. It wasn't in 12 days. I think it was in about 15 days. So pretty much back to back. Off the back of also, I hadn't been doing much exercise before that. So it was pretty brutal just throwing yourself in. It was a shock to the system. I'm really proud to say I did it. I really shaved some time off, and I feel much more equipped to talk about players' times themselves. And I feel like hopefully if any players have seen it and I've then commented on their Bronco time, maybe I've earned some respect.
No, I 100% agree. I think you definitely have earned some respect, because even if you just look at the first video to the last, you definitely see the progression. You definitely see the improvement in the endurance. But yeah, I mean, I was the same. Like I jumped on the challenge. I was full gung ho about it, and then I got sick into day 2 or 3, and then I had to do a few broken Broncos on one day to make it up so I could try and get to the 12. But yeah, I mean, thinking about players who are going into their testing in preseason, just like we're seeing at the moment, they're dreading it just as much as we are just to run one in general. They're sitting there going, we have to get the best time so I can get to show these coaches that I'm ready to go, I'm fit, and I'm here to stay.
100%. And I maybe it's a personal psyche for me. Like, I couldn't have run that with someone else there. That would have psyched me out so much. Where I live, there was sort of Christmas activities happening in the evenings around there when I'd go to run, because it was really hot. So I was doing it at night, and there'd be lots of people around. And obviously I was filming it too. So it's kind of drawing attention to myself. And I found the whole thing very embarrassing. So I can't imagine, doing it with other people there, content creator there, shooting it, putting it on social. But I guess that's why I'm not a professional athlete.
Well, I mean, it speaks to your creativity, and that's kind of the thing that I want to talk about in this first segment today, because you've grown exponentially in regards to your followers, just your whole persona that you have created through this amazing space. So take me back a little bit. How did you first get into rugby media, journalism, and storytelling? Because I know that you're a big rugby fan. You can see it just written on your face every time you talk about a certain story. So when it comes to rugby media, how was the first time that you thought I could potentially do something like this?
Well, yeah, I grew up in a town, Queenstown, New Zealand, born and raised there, and rugby was obviously big through the Highlanders, All Blacks, but my school, we didn't even have a boys' first 15 when I was kind of coming through high school. So everyone skied, snowboard, plays ice hockey, that sort of stuff. In a way, it was weird that I was such a big fan, because I didn't have sort of that intimate knowledge of the game itself other than just watching. And then went to uni, I studied media and graduated, and then ended up in a completely different career path. But I guess I still always had that passion for rugby, and it was right around the Men's Rugby World Cup in 2023 that I was seeing people on TikTok in particular, and content was doing really well about rugby. And I just had thought that I maybe had something interesting to offer, a little bit of a different perspective. And really, someone said to me, and I do think it is a great saying, that closed mouths don't get fed, and opportunities can come your way if you're putting yourself out there in the position to be offered those opportunities. So I just thought it'd be such a silly reason, out of fear of embarrassment, to not do something like that. Not to say that it wasn't embarrassing when people in my actual life are like, wait, you just posted this video, what is this? But yeah, so that was kind of the journey to it. And I guess since then it's kind of grown, and I've been really fortunate to be invited into some really cool things and experience some really cool things. And to, I guess, also kind of refine what it is I'm trying to do and the content that I'm kind of known for. So I guess that's sort of the journey, briefly.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, off camera and off recording, I feel like the voice that you have is very authentic. It's something where you can see the passion, you can see a lot of things. I think the thing I really like the most about is your green screen videos. You'll come on and it won't be something that is kind of just feels like off the cuff. It feels like you have prepared, but a lot of the stuff you're talking about is just from your knowledge, from your heart, and it's something that you're really passionate about, and you can see that come out. And I see also your interviews that you've done with Super Rugby teams like the Chiefs, and people are really resonating with that content. So when you're thinking about your creative identity, how did you come with that? Do you say just, I'm going to lean into me, I'm just going to stick with that? Or was there certain things that you thought really resonated with the public that you lent into?
I guess there is a bit of both in reality, right? But I know, particularly in New Zealand, that the number of women who talk about rugby or sport in particular on a platform is minimal. There's not many women in our newsrooms, unfortunately. We're lucky. I think Sky do a great job with making sure that there's plenty of women on their panels and commentary. But yeah, I just thought there was an opportunity for a woman to be talking about rugby and bringing that perspective. I know that the things that make me enjoy rugby because I've never played it actually aren't necessarily just the moments in the game. Obviously, I think rugby is the greatest sport in the world and I just want it to win. And I don't think there's a sport that compares in terms of moments of contest after moments of contest after moments of contest all across the park. But yeah, the things that have always kept me interested in rugby are not necessarily the things happening on the park. And so I knew that I had, I guess, the interest and ability to talk about those things because of my interests outside of rugby. I remember saying to someone that, like, if I just use rugby to talk about rugby, then we're not doing anything to get any further. But if I can bring my interests in film or music or fashion and use that to contextualize things that are happening in rugby, then that can provide something really interesting and potentially reach people who aren't already engaged in the game. So that's kind of the framework I had. Obviously, there are things that, particularly when you're working in a digital space and there's algorithms involved, there's certain things around, posting when the algorithm's hot. So you're posting after a game is finished if you're talking about those teams. Unfortunately, negative, critical takes tend to do better, or controversial takes. I definitely know that my first video was very much in that frame. It was about Owen Farrell in the lead up to the 2023 Men's Rugby World Cup. It was obviously a huge story. I thought there were really interesting elements around judicial process and race. And yeah, it was a fascinating story. Would I approach it the same way I did then now? Probably not. But I guess what I'm saying is I've tried as much as possible on my platform to grow into not always taking the easiest, most controversial, negative take and trying to show a positive story about rugby. There's enough people who are negative. And I'm not an analyst. I'm not a critic. I'm actually at my heart a fan, and I just want rugby to win. And I think there's space for that content as well.
And I wholeheartedly agree, because I think when it comes to rugby, the biggest take in a lot of people's minds is how can we get more visibility to the sport? Because I think over here in the United States, it's growing, but it's something where we're competing with so many different sports. There are so many different variables that come into it, understanding the game, so on and so forth. So yeah, I agree. It's something where it may not be the easiest path, but it is something where if you can lean into what you know, what you're passionate about, and just be yourself, I think people, especially in the rugby community, can really see that authenticity. So, I mean, credit to you for not going the easy route, because I think it's working, and I think we're going to see a lot of progress moving forward from just that in general. But speaking on specific moments and projects, is there a moment or a project that you were working on where you really thought, this is something I want to do, not just as a passion project or as a side gig, it's something that I want to do as much full-time as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I've been really fortunate to have some opportunities to do collabs with Rugby World Cup over the Women's World Cup, which was really fun. I think through that, again, that came from me posting content. It was the Pyramids, which was obviously a take on Dance Moms for anyone who's watched that. And I guess that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Is what I bring is like a little bit of a different framing of it's in essence, it's just a player of the week, but it's just framed a little differently and familiar to people outside of rugby. But yeah, those opportunities were really cool. And I think more than anything, just gave me confidence around the angles that I'm taking and the way I'm thinking about rugby mostly. And I'd say also, I think there's just times like I particularly think around the content around when Loewe, the fashion label, did that photo shoot and it had rugby players in a scrum with Io from the Bear. And I knew straight away, oh, it's Jonathan Anderson, son of former Irish captain who steered down the haka, Willie Anderson. And I was going, I don't know how many people will have drawn that connection. And so I felt really stoked to be able to tell that sort of story as well. It felt like it kind of was right in the niche. So those are probably some standout moments or content pieces that I've really enjoyed for sure.
Because I think I was listening to whether it was one of your stories recently or a video, you were talking about how you and your father, you were talking about old players back in the day. And I think the fact that the banter between you two, where you know every player's nickname and you're able to kind of go back to that passion where you guys grew up watching rugby. And it's just, you can see it's just so easy and it's so free flowing that love to lean into it. So We spoke a little bit about the uniqueness and you being yourself, but when you look at influences in the journalism space or in rugby itself, were there any big influences for you that you really lent in on?
I think the first person I really remember seeing their content is Andy, the rugby nose on TikTok.
Mm,
He was one of the first people I saw. And again, like I think he's carved out such a unique to him lane. Like he's leaning into being a nose and he's very uh, analytical in what he's saying. He's pretty neutral, and I really enjoyed his takes on games, especially when, again, like we say on social media, if you're a little bit more reactive, if you're a little bit more polarizing, you tend to do better. But he's carved out a huge audience of over 100,000 for himself by sticking to his guns, which I think was really cool. And yeah, he was one of the first people I ever saw on TikTok. Duncan from Boomfa Vintage here in New Zealand, I saw pretty early on
yeah.
Instagram. He's great. And again, like, drill down into your niche. He knows what his content is about. He can draw that thread at any point. Jamie Wall, who I know you've spoken to on here, the journalist here, was a really early supporter of mine and brought me in to do things with RNZ, which was so grateful for and like super eye-opening. And so he's been very supportive of, I guess, me in that space, but also I guess he is a journalist who is really keen and interested and eager and able in the digital space as well, and sort of showcasing how legacy media can show up on social media and taking that approach, which I think is really important. And I'd say like the OG for New Zealand fans is definitely Alex Malcolm, who runs the Legend of Marty Banks Facebook page. It's different, totally different to what I do, and and it's existed for far longer than like TikTok, right? And Reels, it's sort of content and memes that are. It started primarily on Facebook, but it stood the test of time. So I think that's definitely an influence. Even just the tone and the language and the personality that's built around the Legend of Marty Banks page is a real part of rugby folklore for sure.
Oh my God. Yeah, that page, I remember when it just exploded. You just look at it and I always loved his content, but then you look at how many followers he has now gotten from just, again, him being himself and all the things that he's going through, the visibility he's brought to rugby as well. It's awesome. And yeah, and you spoke about Jamie. I got the pleasure of meeting him for the first time in Chicago when the All Blacks came, and he's someone that I'd messaged a couple of times on social media. Never thought I'd meet him in person because I'm based out in the US. But as soon as we got into a press room, as soon as we got onto the field, he is a person that is trying to bring everyone up. Not only is he someone who is probably, I think, the best journalist at the moment in the rugby space, just because of, again, his authenticity, his knowledge of the game, his ability to say what's on his mind and back himself. I think from that process, he said on the podcast when I interviewed him, he wants to help people. He wants to see rugby succeed like you. He wants to see people get the opportunities. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have brought up two better people to have influencers or people who are kind of staples in the journalism space.
100%. And there's so many great people around. And I think maybe the point also, we talked about there not being many women talking about sport, particularly in New Zealand at the moment. But I think what I really hoped to achieve was that if I did it to a relatively successful level, then someone else would see value in also talking about rugby. And hopefully we can create this like larger digital ecosystem of people who are talking about rugby, which leads to more people talking about rugby, which leads to more people at games and growth all across the world. And so I hope that for everyone, but I also hope that for young women as well, who can see it and be like, oh, actually, I could do that too. And I'm sure there's someone out there who can do what I do, but better. And I hope that person picks up a microphone.
No, that's great. I think even if it is just setting the tone, it's bringing more visibility. So that's awesome. Well, I think I want to talk a little bit about just your creative process, something that a lot of people may not get an opportunity to understand or see. They do get to see the amazing content that you bring out, but when you're thinking about building content, you spoke about the leaning into the algorithm, things like that. So can you walk us through what your creative process looks like on a day-to-day basis? I know with our game, it's ever changing. There's always different things happening. But when you're thinking about creating content, what is your process?
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot over time, because I think when I started, I very much said, well, I'm not going to start this unless I can be consistent and I can upload every day, which I did for like a year and a half. But that obviously wasn't sustainable. And so I've definitely had to change my approach a little more. And so that's why I've tended to well, in recent times, try and come up with content ideas around games so I know that that's what I'm doing that week. So I'm going to be doing a video about this game in particular rather than just always having to react to news. And so that could come at any time and have to do that every day. So that's where those kind of ranking games out of 5 stars came from, because it felt like I could commit to a certain number of games a week. And when there wasn't rugby on, then I could commit to, okay, I'll do 1 game from the archive. But in terms of creative process, yeah, I usually will just have like a random idea. I have like notes apps full of ideas. And when I run out of something, I'll cross that off. I usually don't script. I'll just film off the dome on TikTok, like takes, and then delete them if they're no good and repeat it. So I'll just do that until it's good and then just edit it down, save it, post on TikTok, save it, post on Instagram. That's probably the whole thing. But yeah, I'm definitely less consistent than I was initially, mainly through just life and everything. And then, but I do encourage being consistent in the first place. And then, yeah, really dialing down on the things that you think are valuable and you find interesting. And I think for me, just are going to further the vision that I kind of have. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the creative process in general. There's always going to be an evolution and a growth, and that you're going to see what works, what doesn't. And that doesn't just mean what works in the space, what works for yourself. Because if you're in a creative space and you get burnt out and you lose interest in it, it's not beneficial for everyone. So it's something that you've got to find something that you're able to be, 1, authentic, 2, consistent, like you said, and 3, that it just keeps bringing you the opportunity and the passion to keep doing what you do. So yeah, it sounds like you've got a pretty good process that you're able to lean into.
Yeah, definitely. And that comes from trial and error, right? You know, I could have kept going every day and it probably would have been bad for me. Had to kind of make some adjustments. So, and that's the content game, right? Fortunately. But you're always reflecting, I guess. And sometimes, you know, you put so much effort into something and it doesn't work out, and that's okay. And then you'll do it again and it does. I think it's also really important to have some real conviction in what you're doing and what you're kind of about. And then it makes it a lot easier to be consistent.
And just to touch on this last portion is for up-and-coming creators or sports journalists, if they're thinking about getting in the space, obviously no one journalist has all the answers. They can't be the picturesque perfect person in the space. Like there's always different things that are being looked at and things you need to improve on or things you're able to lean into. But what advice would you give for someone standing out in this space or just looking to kind of break into it?
Yeah, I think I'd stand by that. Be consistent. Your consistency will be rewarded, and that also will help you refine and grow and improve. I think the other thing with social that I think is really important to consider, which is different to maybe legacy and mainstream media, is that anyone can see your content, and that can be a really good and a really bad thing, in the sense that you never know the opportunities that are waiting from someone who may see your content, who may work somewhere who could give you an opportunity. But also that means that the people you're talking about can see your content. And so I think just be mindful of that. I think public figures know that they are up for discussion, that especially rugby players, right? They know that their performances may be critiqued. But if they wanted to see what people thought 10 years ago, they'd have to click on an article. But now, because of the algorithm, that may unknowingly come across their feed. And I just think it's always important to think about how when you're making your video, if this person saw this video, what would they think? And that's something I've learned from experience. Like I said, my first video about Owen Farrell, I don't think I'd approach that the same way now at all. But I think it's always good to keep that in mind.
Okay, well, yeah, it was great to hear about your creative process, your journey in journalism. And hopefully this does inspire some more people to come behind the camera or come behind the microphone and just give it a crack and bring more visibility to rugby. So thank you for bringing that. But we're right around the corner from the new Super Rugby Pacific season, and I'm really excited to get your take, because obviously you've been having your finger on the pulse. You're ready to jump in and cover a lot of it as the season begins. And as you can see in my full kit, I'm a big Chiefs fan. Really excited to see how they're going to go with some. No, it's good. It's good. It's something where I try to be, I guess, the person who is trying to stay impartial. But then when I have the first opportunity to talk about Super Rugby, I was like, I got to put it on. I just got to wear it. But I think the thing I've been enjoying about is, and I've been seeing with some of your content, they've had some big signings in the offseason. They've retained a lot of key players. So that's really exciting to me. But we also have, again, as we did last year, a lot of teams who are coming for them and coming for top spot, as the Crusaders had a great season last year. There are a couple of Aussie teams that are looking red hot. And I want to get your opinion on which teams or players have caught your eye heading into 2026. So I think let's start with teams first. I would love to know which teams you think are going to be, and we're going to touch on your top 5 a little bit later when we get to the bonus points segment. But yeah, which teams are you liking the look of?
I think from a New Zealand perspective, it feels like the Hurricanes have to kind of string it together this season. I think there's no team in Super Rugby that is better than the Hurricanes when they're on. They just have had lapses because when they're not on, you're like, oh my God, what's going on? You're so much better than this. And I think with it being Clark Laidlaw's 3rd year in charge, I feel like it's going to click this year. The return of Geordie Barrett, Riley Higgins is fit. Obviously, they've got a lot of stars. Ruben Lovett sounds like is going to be starting at 10 and kind of steering everyone around the park, which is exciting. So I really think that the Canes are the ones to watch. And if they can get it together, they're going to be a frightening prospect. From the Australian side of things, I mean, the Reds and the Brumbies, I'm just used to them being there or thereabouts come finals time. I'm really hopeful about the Force this year. They put in a really impressive campaign that just kind of fell apart at the last hurdle last year ahead of the top 6. But I think this year they've really retained a lot of players, which they haven't done in the past. And then there's been some exciting additions, the likes of George Bridge, Darby Lancaster. So I think the Force really the ones to watch. Obviously, Carlo Cesano, they're an absolute standout Super Rugby player. And I think he'll be there to kind of motivate and lead this team into the top 6, hopefully for the first time.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on the Western Force. Every year I look at their player pool, I go, they've got to crack top 4. They have to. Like, look at everyone who is in this roster. Look at all the pieces that they can put together, the combinations, and then every year they let me down. It's not something where I'm super invested and that devastated, but it just happens every time, and I'm so disappointed. So I'm right in that camp with you, because Reds and Brumbies, they've always been the 1-2 punch in Australia. So yeah, I'm really hoping they can bring something together. In regards to the Hurricanes, I also agree with you. I think now that we've got Almua back and he's healthy, and seeing even just the photo of his quads when he was walking around, how massive they are at the moment, that's something where I was like, there's another piece of the pie that just comes right at you and says he is going to destroy people if he can stay healthy. So yeah, I was also very excited to hear that Ruben Love was talking about how he used to play 10. He's looking to play 10. It's going to provide a lot of interesting conversations when it comes to the 10 debate, considering how young he is, how promising he is when it comes to the All Blacks, but also with Richie Mo'unga coming back into the fold in 2026. Yeah, a lot of good opportunities to get some good vantage points on a lot of teams and get some players some really good opportunities to highlight for the All Blacks jersey at the end of the season. But let's talk about players specifically. Is there any 2 or 3 players that you're saying that these are going to be the standout players in this season?
Well, funny you say that. Before I was here talking to you, I was at the Blues Crusaders preseason game in Ornewa Domain on the North Shore. Peter Archie, man, he was absolutely unreal. And it was a preseason game, so like I know that does it count for much? Maybe not, but I was super impressed. He was playing out there like he was prime Nonu. He took it was 3 or 4 players to get him down. He could free the ball. He was so powerful. So I'm so excited to see Peter Archie and what he can bring to Super Rugby after a long absence where he's been so successful in the top 14. I don't know if he'll get game time early, but I'm really excited to see what Stanley Solomon can do down at the Highlanders. It might be more of a 2027 question, but he's such a young gun. He was one of the stars of the New Zealand under-20s. He comes from great pedigree. His mother was a Black Fern, Erin Rush. And I think he's just a massive signing for them, for him to have gone down there when he's a real Hurricanes boy, Wellington boy. So I think he's a great signing for them, and I'm excited to see how he goes if he gets on the park. Who else? Maybe from Australia. Max Jorgensen, man, I think he is one of the best players. He's going to go down as one of the best players in Australian history. I'm so impressed by him. That try he scored in the Brumbies Tars preseason, he looked like he'd put on a bit of weight as well, like just massive, an absolute specimen. And I just love watching him play. So I think Max Jorgensen, I guess also if you're playing Fantasy Super Rugby Pacific, he'd be one of the first names on my team sheet.
100%. I mean, I don't care how much he costs. I'm taking him. It's something where people, I think you posted the video actually of the amounts that some players are going for, and I go, just take my card. Like he's worth it in spades.
100%. So yeah, he's maybe one to watch from the Waratahs. If I'm thinking other teams, maybe Israel Leota from Moana Pacifica. I believe he's a league convert who's come over. One to watch for sure. And last year, I thought I saw Nasilisila for the Fijian Drua was a great player. He was in my partner's fantasy team every week. He loved him, and he always scored big bucks. So definitely one to watch as well.
That's awesome. No, I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of players, because I think when it comes to the Blues, I've seen some articles that have come out where Vern Cotter's talking about the importance of preseason games, and he was stating a lot about we're looking for people just to be engaged and have a crack. It's something where he wants to see the energy. The approach the outcome isn't going to be the main source of what they're looking at. They want to see how players are going about certain opportunities. Because in preseason, you only get small amounts. Like you look at the Blues at the moment, they had, I guess, their smaller, less experienced players. And then in their second half side, you had a full Super Rugby starting 15 that could beat a lot of teams. So you're seeing those first half teams, they want to see what you get out of those minimal minutes and see what you can provide to that team dynamic, because then you can see what you can get from that and then you can plug and play.
Totally.
Yeah, Peter Archie, I'm so excited to see him back in Super Rugby, and I think it's going to be incredible this season just to bring, I think, the experience alone and just what he can provide to the culture and the dynamic.
And that winning mentality, right? He's a proven winner, which is what the Blues want after a 2025 season that was maybe a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Okay, cool. Well, let's touch on the content a little bit more in Super Rugby, because I would really like to see, is there any content or campaigns you're particularly excited about working with, or is it just going to be come as it goes?
It'll be come as it goes for me, but I did want to shout out something that I think's been really cool, which is what the Hurricanes have been up to over the last week. They're obviously playing their preseason game tomorrow. I don't know when this will come out, but tomorrow, which is the 7th of Feb in New Zealand at Jerry Collins Stadium in Porirua. And as tribute to the late, great Jerry Collins, they've asked for people to dye their hair, bleach their hair as he did. And those who come, I think the first 50 people who come to that game with bleached hair get in for free, and they also get a free pass to their round 2 game against Moana Pacifica. You've seen the players jump on board. Ruben Love's got blonde hair all of a sudden. I'd love to see Geordie Barrett go for a bit of a blonde moment, maybe Dupes, we'll see. But I just think it was really cool. Little bit of fan engagement. It plays really well. Obviously, it's 30 years of Super Rugby this year as well. So I think it plays really nicely into that, with Jerry Collins being one of the icons of both the Hurricanes and Super Rugby. And yeah, I just think that sort of fun stuff is what Super Rugby is all about. So that brought me great joy to watch along.
That is a content creator's dream. You're going to have so many different characters and different energy when it comes to that game where, oh man, I can't wait to see the photos that come out of that, because there's going to be some epic hairdos that come out of it.
Right?
It's going to be awesome. Well, okay, lastly, before I touch on it, in regards to the season, I know every season is different, but there's kind of like this different aura and energy that is coming into the 2026 season. So is there anything that you feel is different or unique about this particular season?
Well, I think 2025 was such a great year for Super Rugby Pacific. It was certainly, I think people have described it as a bit of a return to form and a return to that ethos of Super Rugby, which is entertaining rugby, fast rugby, a bit of fatigue, rugby in the sun, and then rugby in the winter, you know? So it was a great season, and it feels like there's momentum building. I saw the other day with the release of the law innovations that are all kind of targeted at reducing stoppages, that the fan response to that was incredibly positive. And I think that's a sign of fans buying into, okay, yeah, this is the competition that I want. And sure, Maybe sometimes that, people were talking about, oh, well, does that prepare them for test rugby? And I'm sure there's a wider conversation about that. But I think at the end of the day, the fans are enjoying their rugby that they're watching during Super Rugby Pacific. And that's probably the most important thing. Yeah. And fans, I think, willing to stick up for Super Rugby a little bit more. It's been a bit of a boxing bag for a while, I think. Easy pickings. And now I think fans are feeling excited about it. I know I am. It sounds like you are. So kickoff can't come soon enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited that I don't have to use a VPN to access Sky Sport
I
or
saw
something like that
this.
over here. Yeah, Rugby
Rugby
Pass
Pass.
streaming over here. And for free. I think that honestly is like I'm going to be broadcasting that everywhere to friends, people who are interested in rugby, just telling me like, just chuck this on, go watch a game of rugby. It's honestly one of the best decisions I've seen a rugby media conglomerate or a media outlet make, because I think especially in the build up to the Rugby World Cup coming up in the United States, we're going through our own trials and tribulations. So I think the fact that we can get more visibility, not just to rugby in general, but to Super Rugby, because it is such an incredible game in my opinion, and it is doing a lot for the game. I can't wait for people to start watching it again. I'll be having watch parties at my house. I'll be putting it on out at local bars here, because we've got a few Kiwis out here in Santa Monica and other places. So it's going to be awesome. But you touched on innovation. You touched on protecting Super Rugby and projecting it about how it is beneficial to the game. I personally think that Super Rugby is doing a lot. I think the introduction of the 50-22, I think the conversation that we've been having about the 20-minute red card and not disrupting test matches and doing those things. I think we're always going to have struggles and trials when it comes to trying to match Southern Hemisphere with Northern Hemisphere. That's just the nature of the game. I definitely think that I would like to promote and have some respect for Super Rugby to say we're doing what we think is best, and not just for the game itself, but for the fans, which is the most important part. If we don't have fans, we don't have a game.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. There's been a lot of data released, I think, from Super Rugby Pacific over the last year on the back of such a great 2025 season that supports everything that they're trying to achieve, right? And I think there's this misconception from the Northern Hemisphere and I think from South African fans that it's about trying to depower the scrum, which I think is entirely not the case. It's just trying to stop having to reset a scrum 3 times. And it's giving teams options where it would only be a scrum or only be a penalty kick to then be a free kick to allow them to run if that's what they kind of choose. So, yeah, I think, and Super Rugby has always kind of been the little comp that innovates, down here in our little corner of the world. And I think the cool thing about rugby is that it is truly a global sport. And like you say, there will always be clashes of opinion around how the game should be played, style, etc. And that also comes from fans in different parts of the world liking different things, right? And that's the thing, is that fans of rugby are not a conglomerate. They're not a monolith. They are totally different in different corners of the world because of different things, right? So, for example, down here in the Southern Hemisphere, you have the prevalence of other sports like AFL and League, and that does inform what fans are used to. And therefore, we're working in a different environment to the UK and Europe, where what they contest with is football, where you do actually have long periods where kind of nothing really happens. And so I do think we just have to have a little bit of respect for the fact that all of these domestic competitions are operating in different environments with fans who have different expectations and enjoy different things.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, because I'll go to an example about I was introducing rugby to one of my friends, and he now can't get enough of it. He's so excited for the next All Black season to start. He's so excited for the Major League Rugby season to start. But I will take you to exactly the point you made about the scrums. He got so bored of sitting there watching a premiership game where they had to reset a scrum, I think like 5 or 6 times, and then the referee just kept bringing it back, made the mark again, and then had a crack again. And then he saw a Super Rugby game recently, and he said they just got on with it. And I go, yeah, it's a really fast, really exciting game, and I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to find a balance of exciting for the fans and also some quality rugby.
And exactly. And the scrum is exciting. It's a key part of the game. And like I said before, the thing that sets rugby apart is that every single moment is a contest. And the scrum is an important part of that. The line out is an important part of that. Rucks, mauls, even passing can be a contest at times, right? And so I think what these law changes do is actually they say, well, then there's more time for the contest. You spend more time doing that and less time standing around waiting to reset something. And it's almost a little bit like, well, do the thing properly, do it to the best level, more contest. But I understand that, like I say, fans enjoy different things in different parts of the world for various reasons. And so why it makes sense to us doesn't necessarily make sense to other fans. And that's just why we're going to probably have this discourse forever.
It's just going to keep going on until the end of time. I love it. Okay, well, at least it'll definitely keep it interesting. Well, okay, our bonus point segment today, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to be talking about Super Rugby and we're going to be picking our top 5. So I think I would love to hear just straight away your 5 teams that you feel either you think it's going to end up like that, or the top 5 teams that you think are just going to have the most quality season this year. Just pick your top 5 going from 5 to 1.
5 to 1? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll say 5 for the Western Force, because I think they'll come in at 5th. 4, I'm going to do it, what the top 5 of the Super Rugby ladder will be. 4, Brumbies, Reds, this is tight, Hurricanes, and then I'm putting my Highlanders at number 1. That is that is a whack list. I don't know. I kind of lost the plot there, but I'll stand by it.
I mean, it's not a spoiler here. Like, I'm going to put Chiefs at number 1 as well, because
I didn't even include the Chiefs. Oh my God. All the Crusaders.
It's fine. You come on a Chiefs podcast and then you sit there and go, no, I'm not even going to include them. That's fine. But that shows, no, it's fine. I love it, because that's what your whole journey has been about. You back yourself, and I love it. And I think it is very bold to put the Highlanders at number 1, even more so after Fabian Holland injured his shoulder recently in a preseason match. So, I mean, credit to you. There have been crazier things that happen in Super Rugby where the Highlanders could come in and all the noise and news about Jamie Joseph, they could have the ride of their lives. So you never know.
That.
It's always,
how good would it be?
It would be a great, awesome documentary that would be made. I know they made the last one about the last finals run they went on, but I mean, who knows? 2026, it could be the Highlanders' year. But I think, for me, I'm also going to put the Western Force at 5. I just want to see them do well. I think they've got the team to do it, and I'm going to back them to go 5. Would like to include the Brumbies in my top 5. I've got a couple of mates that I went to school with that played in the Brumbies, have played in the Brumbies. I personally think they're on a downward turn just because of other teams and certain signings they have. I would like to put them at 4, but I'm not going to. I think I'm going to put the Crusaders at 4. I think they had an incredible last season. They're obviously the most dominant team in the history of Super Rugby. I just don't see them having the same trajectory. But every year I'm wrong. Every time I think that
every year everyone is wrong.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. 3, I'm going to go the Canes. I think they're definitely going to crack top 3. I think it's all going to come down to, obviously, injuries and certain combinations. I think Geordie Barrett coming back into the fold is going to be huge. Everyone saw what he did for Leinster. He's a superstar. They've got some incredible talent in Creefy, Almua, Love, and the list goes on and on. I just think it's going to be top 3. 2, I think it's going to be the Reds. I think with Les Kiss leaving, with the signing of Vern Cotter for 2027, with the squad that they've been able to retain, I think a fire is just going to be lit under their ass and they're just going to be on ones. And I'm hoping it's going to be a Chiefs-Reds final. That
would be a great final. That would be a really great final. I would really enjoy that.
And then hopefully my Chiefs can actually pull it out of the bag and not squander it again. Let's hope. Or maybe it could be a Chiefs Highlanders final. You never know. It could
under the
happen.
Roof, surely. Under the roof.
You've got the Highlanders winning and also home field advantage. I'm loving this take from you. This is great.
I'm manifesting.
Manifesting is good. I like it. Well, thank you so much for joining. I mean, it's been incredible hearing about your path in journalism and working with rugby, working behind the lens. And I'm really excited to see where your career goes. I think you are doing some incredible things for the visibility of rugby. And just, if it's just me as a fan saying this, if I'm not saying this for everyone else, I just want to keep seeing you doing what you're doing. So thank you so much for everything you do. I will say best of luck for the Super Rugby season, everything you're got ahead of you. And if any listeners want to follow more of your content and creative work, what's the best place to find you?
Sorry, I'm just getting over all the compliments that just got thrown my way. Thank you so much. I'm Ella Ferguson on TikTok, Ella Ferguson _5 on Instagram. I think those are the 2 main places. That's where I'll be. I'll be there.
Okay.
Promise.
Random last question. Where did the 5 come from? Was that just like a generated name from Instagram, or is 5
Yeah,
a
I couldn't
significant
get
number?
like Ella Ferguson, and then I think I was too scared to do like Ella Ferguson rugby in case I changed my mind and couldn't change it back. So 5 was very random. I don't know about it. I might need to rethink it.
No, I say stick with it. Authentic to the end. I mean, Legend of Marty Banks could have been a page that everyone goes, okay, what do you do after you stop talking about Marty Banks? But then you go, look at what has flourished. So I think stick with it. You could probably use the 5 to your advantage and maybe come up with something else.
5 is iconic. Maybe we'll get there.
There we go. Okay, well, thank you everyone for tuning into the Bonus Point Rugby Podcast. We have episodes coming out week on week, and we are going to be leaning in hard to the Super Rugby Pacific season with all the content following forward. All right, we hope to see you tune in next week. Have a good one.